Alright, man, peace. You know, brothers, I remember on the eve of the 2017 NBA Finals, LeBron James and his corporate sponsors, most likely Nike Incorporated, decided that they were going to try to amplify LeBron James's racial profile by alleging that the front gate of his Brentwood mansion had been spray painted with the word nigger. Up to this date, there has been no update, no follow-up on the allegations, no assailant or no perpetrator found, no video footage presented to the public, nothing. That's how you know that it was a stunt. And it's very common for the wokey wokes to become complicit with their benefactors, with their sponsors, with utilizing stunts to try to optimize or amplify their overall profile, to garner fame and attention for themselves by alleging that there was some type of racial issue where they were targeted. Sometimes they are targeted, but other times they're not, because they operate according to the credo that the ends justify the means and that there's no such thing as bad attention. That is why LeBron James is such a great pawn, because he's willing to become a part of anything to amplify his fame. Of course, everything that I'm saying in regards to that case is alleged. All I'm telling you, brothers, and I've been stating it since 2017, where is the video footage? You live in a residential neighborhood. You mean to tell me that there was no cameras that spotted the perpetrator? It's that difficult to locate who would have spray painted the word nigger on your front gate. I'm just not buying it. Why am I bringing all this up? Because I've been telling you, brothers, for a very long time, going back pretty much since the inception of the civil rights movement in the 1950s, that behind the scenes, you had Caucasian communists like James Dombrowski, Carl and Ann Braden, who instructed many of the black civil rights workers on how to orchestrate certain stunts to garner attention for themselves. Sometimes even claiming that the KKK or the police were the people who were involved in certain situations, when it was actually the communist sponsors themselves. And it was purely for the intention of bringing attention to their cause. And the same tactics are still being used today by people like Reid, who has become one of the foremost pro-blackity blacks and wokety wokes in the NFL ever since Colin Kaepernick has pretty much been quote-unquote blackballed from the league. He has claimed that he has been tested for performance-enhancing drugs an exorbitant amount of times since he's returned to the NFL. He currently plays for the Carolina Panthers, at least for now. But due to an investigation that was performed by both the NFL and the NFL Players Association, both factions found that Reid was lying. He was lying. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
To the NFL we go. The NFL and NFLPA, in a joint statement released today, said there is no evidence of targeting or any other impropriety regarding Reid's selection for drug testing this season. Quote, "We take any claim questioning the integrity of our collectively bargained performance-enhancing drug policy seriously. We ask the independent administrator of the policy to review and produce a report on the claims of targeting. A copy of this report, which contains personal and confidential testing information, has been provided to Reid."
Let me say this very quickly. This statement is rather damning because, as we all know, the NFL and the NFL's Players Association have a great deal of enmity between those two factions. They do not get along on almost any subject. So for them to issue a joint statement against Reid, what are they really saying about Reid?
"We will not breach any player's confidentiality, but can confirm that the report documents the dates he was randomly selected for testing and the actual dates of the drug tests. The report also demonstrates that Mr. Reid's tests were randomly generated via computer algorithm and that his selection for testing was normal when compared with the number of test players were randomly selected for throughout the league during the time he was on the active roster. There is no evidence of targeting or any other impropriety with respect to his selection for testing."
Let me say this very quickly, since Molly Karam has finished reading this statement. Even if Reid was quote-unquote randomly tested for performance-enhancing drugs more than any other player, if that's the worst thing that he has to endure for making 7 figures or 8 figures to play a child's game, who gives a shit? Even if you believe that you're being targeted, should you not expect that? And if that's the worst thing that they're doing to you, you can't handle that? Is that supposed to be quote-unquote oppression?
Max?
Yeah.
What's your reaction to all this?
They didn't find evidence, okay. I don't know if they looked to see if the algorithm was overridden at any time. There could be a digital footprint. If they did, then in fact, sometimes unlikely events occur. In fact, unlikely events occur all the time. People get struck by lightning. And it's not quite on that level. It's something like 1 in 10,000, not 1 in, a million. But it's a highly unlikely event that there wasn't some collusion here. But okay, if there wasn't collusion, there wasn't collusion.
So now Max Kellerman is alleging that the NFL's Players Association is colluding with the NFL owners. Prior to that, we've heard allegations that all the NFL owners are colluding against Colin Kaepernick. So this is a prime example of people trying to alter facts to suit their theories as opposed to altering their theories to suit the facts.
What about the fact that Eric Reid, who is
an idiot,
at minimum, a solid starter at his position, when he couldn't get a job? Why didn't he get a job?
I'm not sure, Max Kellerman. How come Josh Freeman still can't get a job? He was a starting NFL quarterback about 4 or 5 years ago. Why can't he get a job?
Even in other words, in the bigger picture, the idea that he didn't get a job, or that they haven't been able to find collusion in ongoing, in Kaepernick's case. So that suggests that they're not communicating with each other. That may be worse in a way. Because, and I know I'm expanding this to talk about collusion more broadly, but...
No, you're expanding this to push your agenda, your super liberal Caucasian Jew agenda, where you put a battery in the back of buffoons like Eric Reid.
But it may be worse because what it identifies, what it suggests, is that there's such a lack of diversity among ownership that not only do they not put any kind of social justice issue ahead of their own bottom line.
Why would they do that? Why would you as a businessman put a social justice issue ahead of your bottom line? What you're saying makes no sense, sir.
But none of them consider or conclude, none of them, that in fact it may be in their best financial interest. Mm-hmm. Like, look at what happened to Nike stock, right? Like, it may be in their best financial interest to pander.
Nike stock experienced a momentary bump. I'm sure that they've regressed back to the mean in the aftermath of them deciding that they were going to publicly support Colin Kaepernick. I made a couple of videos telling you brothers that we were going to see a momentary bump in Nike stock because you're going to have all these so-called woke black women who run out and buy Nike gear for their children on their way back to school. A lot of the wokety woke black men are going to buy Nike hoodies and Nike sneakers, etc. But it was not going to be long lasting. This was a way for Nike to tap into the wokety woke market to try to catch up to Adidas.
Pander to one group instead of another. All 32 owners want to pander to the same group, which represents at this point a minority in terms of voters, for example. That, to me, is part of why Eric Reid and Kaepernick were protesting in the first place. That issue exists because owners come from a pool of billionaires. There aren't a lot of African-American billionaires, and that's not the result of some innate kind of inferiority. That's the result of the legacy of slavery in this country. I mean, really. And that...
Well, then once again, sir, why do you have any money in your bank account? Why have you not found the nearest disenfranchised black family that actually wants to do great things for themselves and giving them all your money? Live out a proverbial trading places scenario, Max Kellerman, so that you can assuage yourself of your Caucasian Jew liberal guilt, so that at least you can stop bitching on television every damn day and being disingenuous, acting as if you actually care about the quote-unquote plight of the so-called black man, because you don't really care.
And that's essentially, in the big picture, what they're protesting, inequality. And that inequality...
Well, supposedly what they're protesting is quote-unquote police brutality.
Results in their being excluded from the league. So not only do I find this hard to believe, but it's possible, it makes me think of the bigger picture.
Damien, I have one question.
No, it makes you think of the picture where you can stay on brand, being the super liberal Caucasian Jew.
Question for you before you react to this. So he was tested 7 times in 11 weeks, Eric Reid, when he was with the Panthers. Is that normal as a former player?
It is, actually. I remember specifically for me, that happened, I got tested probably like 10 times in a season, during the regular season. So...
And who gives a shit?
I can understand where people are coming from.
And when I say who gives a shit, I'm not talking about Damian Woody. I'm talking about overall, that's a part of your job, to be tested that amount of times. I mean, get over it. You're not being oppressed, dude. Eric Reid, you're not important enough for them to oppress you.
Especially given the fact that the whole lawsuit and the protests and all those type of things. But I can just say from personal experience, being in the league for 12 years, I actually experienced a point in time where I was tested multiple times for PEDs throughout a season.
Let me say this. Let me simplify this for everybody, please, because it ain't that damn complicated.
Thank you, sir. I agree with you already. You haven't even started yet because it's not that damn complicated. I just hope you don't say anything stupid. Go ahead.
To me. Number one, I was told by some folks within the NFL that they were questioning whether or not he was tested as many times as he says he was being tested. I believe in taking the man at his word. I find Eric Reid to be an honorable man, somebody that's standing up for the right issues. I applaud, his fervor, his passion about this issue, and I respect where he's coming from. But it's time to put on your big boy pants and get over it. It's very, very predictable to me what's happening to him. Do I believe for 1 second? Do I believe that he has been targeted? Do I believe that people are looking to irritate him to some degree? You're damn right.
That's my point. I mean, for the NFL and the NFL Players Association to come together and basically issue a joint statement, they're telling Eric Reid, you're not going to fuck up our money this year. Because the NFL Players Association president has probably spoken to Roger Goodell on this issue, and they've come to terms with the fact that, look, we might not get along with much, but we're going to leave this protest issue behind us. We already settled it through Malcolm Jenkins. Eric Reid clearly is not determined to be a football player. He's more interested in being an activist with no plan. And that's up to him. That's okay. But it's very clear that something is riding in Denmark with many of his so-called accusations. And Stephen A. Smith states that he's spoken to sources who state that they don't believe that he's been tested as many times as he claims he was. I've heard from another resource that he was not tested 7 times in total. So who knows who's telling the truth here?
Would I predict it would have happened? You're damn right. Am I surprised at all? Absolutely not. You, in concert with Colin Kaepernick, are going after the National Football League. Billionaires who were whining and crying about the protest having a negative effect on them when they gained 4.9% in revenue, each got a check for $225 million, still claiming that they're broke. Billionaires who believe that they need the support of elected officials in order to get a part of the sports gambling pie that they believe that the NFL is obviously going to ingratiate itself in and subsequently following the Supreme Court ruling favoring that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, and that's going to amount to billions of dollars a year in revenue.
They're looking at these guys as costing them money, and I'm sorry, you're surprised or you're taken aback by the fact that you're targeted. Please, you know they're coming.
Listen, there's
a lot of
and they're not finished either. We have to get a commercial break in, but we can address it later in the show.
Yes, we can.
More people need to respond to.
Sure.
But anyway, that's basically it on that. I just wanted to go over this very quickly because Eric Reid is another civil rights stuntman. His job is to take the blow for the real actor, that real actor being Colin Kaepernick. He's on the scene in place of him, and his job is to take the blow and to keep attention on the so-called cause or the agenda. So if he needs to come out and state that supposedly he's being oppressed through the drug testing protocol, he's going to do that because he has to keep the Colin Kaepernick protest at the forefront of the entire NFL season, however way he can. That's why he tried to wage war with Malcolm Jenkins when they faced off against the Eagles, because Malcolm Jenkins represented somebody who diverged from what the overall plan was supposed to be, which was to have Colin Kaepernick as the figurehead, as the so-called racial liberator. Eric Reid is a man worshiper. I've mentioned this in other videos about him, and he's not mentally stable. And most likely things are not going to end well for him. But anyway, peace.